All right, the Mets plugged up a hole in the outfield on Tuesday night. They traded infielder Luis Angel Acuna and minor league pitcher Truman Pauly to the White Sox for Luis Robert Jr. Let's talk about this trade and many more things about the Mets with my guy, your favorite content creator, Tyler Ward. Wardy, what's going on, my man? Like this guy, hey, full circle moment here because they tried to acquire him at last year's trade deadline. But now he's headed to Queens, or I guess Port St. Lucie first. He struggled offensively again last season, but everyone is calling this guy an elite center fielder. David Stern's priority this offseason has been to strengthen the defensive side of the ball. Thoughts on this trade, sir? What saith you?
Yeah, I've wanted Luis Robert for 2.5 years now. So this was a really coming to full circle moment for myself as a fan as well. And I haven't been as attracted to what he's done each of the past 2 years because in 2023, this was a player that looked like an MVP caliber talent for the White Sox. North of 40 home runs, elite base running, elite defense. What wasn't there to love for a guy in a lineup that really wasn't even that good for the White Sox at the time? Well, fast forward over the past 2 years and a depleted lineup in sorry Southside Chicago, where the White Sox have not been a good baseball team. He hasn't had the protection, and it's shown with his lack of approach and honestly lack of interest at the plate on a daily basis. So this is a massive low-risk, high-reward potential move for the New York Mets by giving up Luis Angel Acuna, who, as much as we liked him initially when the Mets, of course, landed him for Max Scherzer back in 2023 in that trade, Acuna had no immediate route to this Mets roster other than really being a pinch runner and a late-game defensive replacement. He deserves more continued playing time, and he's going to get that now. And Robert shores up the Mets defensively in the outfield massively. This is one of the best defenders as is when healthy. He's also a guy that could quietly steal you 40 stolen bases, as Juan Soto almost did this past season. And the bat has so much upside potential that one does have to believe that now in a deeper lineup that he's ever been a part of, now getting a great reason to get out of bed and be motivated outside of the dollars that you're making, that we can see a player like him blossom with ones in Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto. So I'm really excited to see the potential here in Luis Robert, and the floor is nothing worse than what the Mets have had in center each of the past 2 seasons.
All right, let's take a potential look on what the outfield could look like. You're going to have Juan Soto in right. He's getting paid a lot of money. He ain't going nowhere. You now got Robert Jr. in center. Who's your favorite to win that job in left?
Ooh, that's a great question. The job in left right now is to be determined because we're all kind of wondering, are the Mets going to go ahead and still add another outfielder this offseason of potential quality, or is that completely off the board now that they brought in someone so defensively sound with his versatility and Robert? I think as things are currently constructed, should the Mets not add another outfielder, the expectations that they will begin opening day with Juan Soto in right, Luis Robert in center, and Carson Bench in left field.
All right, we saw the news that Cody Bellinger just re-signed with the Yankees. Belly's headed back to the Bronx. Does that mean that the Mets are done adding to the roster at this point, or do you feel like David Stearns has a backup plan?
I don't believe the Mets are done adding to the roster, but I don't believe them adding a bat is nearly as much of a certainty as maybe what fans otherwise hope to be the case. I think where we're at right now is that the Mets are going to continue to be opportunistic, especially evaluating markets of short-term high AV potential players. Because right now you could rightfully argue the Mets are in the market for at least one more outfielder. Think about if Carson Bench doesn't blossom, their top prospect, or Luis Robert goes down with injury, quickly the Mets are then relying on a guy like Tyrone Taylor to be that everyday guy, when each of the past 2 years it's been proven that that isn't really going to be a needle mover for them. So that's really something that they need to bear in mind as they move forward now. And secondly, when you look at first base, Jorge Polanco is a guy who's never had any first base reps in his professional career until this upcoming season. If David Stearns is really priding himself on making this team more defensively sound, it's indicative that he should be doing at least a sliver of a better job in that regard by adding someone that brings more immediate value at first base that can platoon time with Polanco at first base to DH. Whoever that may be, we'll soon find out. The Mets go down that route still, but I do believe that they're still at least one bat away before you can really look at this lineup and say, wow, this is easily one of the best ones in all the National League.
All right, let's role play a little bit here, Wardy. You got the hat on. I really like it, but I want you to put on your hat like you're David Stearns, president of baseball operations. And this is something I've pretty much asked you after every signing this offseason. After this Robert Jr. trade, in addition, we're about 3 weeks left before pitchers and catchers have to report to spring training. Where do you, Mr. Stearns, how would you grade your offseason so far?
I think the current David Stearns grade I would give, if I'm in his shoes at the moment, would be a B. I think we're right around a B or a B minus, okay? Because the Mets have made really smart moves with everything they've done thus far. If I'm being completely transparent, there isn't a move that I dislike at this point in time. And it's not because I'm trying to be this shill that loves every single thing the Mets president does, but rather when you look at the players they brought in, a lot of it is quality. You know, it's shorter term, not long term commitment. That's always an attractive thing because that's going to keep the Mets afloat with their financial flexibility now and moving forward. But I would give a B or a B minus at the moment because the Mets are still in dire need of adding to this rotation. Once they can do that of quality, of ace caliber pitching, then they will find themselves in greater standing to get closer to that A category.
All right. I love the answer, but you didn't respond as David Stearns. Come on, I need full method actor
Okay.
on this next
All right.
one. I'm talking Heath Ledger as the Joker. Rest in peace, Heath. I'm talking Jim Carrey, how he goes in. Full method actor, Mr. David Stearns. At this point, where we are right now, does this Mets roster look better in 2026 than it did in 2025 going into spring training?
We're absolutely confident in what we built so far this offseason, Brandon. When you look at what we've been adding, especially on the defensive and leadership front, these are qualities that we certainly want to amplify to add for this group, to both this clubhouse and on the field heading into the 2026 season. I firmly believe that we have put ourselves in that more of a direction. I also believe that what we are currently working on more of this offseason, that this is one of those things where when we talk more and say a month from now, you may be asking me, how do I feel then? Because we're not exactly done with what we have here yet. And that's me being the David Stearns I hope he could possibly ever talk to the media. He's never going to give you exactly the signs. He's very much hush hush. I'm going to give you a straight shooted answer, and I'm not going to show my cards whatsoever. So this is me saying to David Stearns, please give us fans a little bit more at times so that way we're not jumping off doing all these crazy stuff when we find out Pete Alonso's not a New York Met, Brandon Nimmo's out here, Edwin Diaz is gone, and we have no clue what to expect with the club.
Well, you nailed the impersonation. I didn't know whether to give you an Oscar or a pennant. You had me. You had me at hello, sir. All right, appreciate you hopping on with us, Wardy. Again, we're weeks away from this thing kicking off. We're going to be talking to you a lot, man. So I appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Brandon. Always a pleasure.